Hi guys, it's me Chaz HD and welcome to the qualifying watch along for qualifying for the 2019 Italian Grand Prix at Monza. The final race, of course, before the European summer season is over in Formula 1. And I cannot wait for qualifying today, especially after practice 3. And we will get into those results in just a moment. They were very, very close, all the drivers in practice 3, and maybe not at the absolute top, but definitely in the midfield. It's going to be so close from, say, P6 down to P18. It's really going to be a very closely fought battle between F1 and the midfield, and maybe also at the top of pole position as well. Hopefully you guys, no matter where you're on the world, having a good day. And hopefully today with me, you will enjoy qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix of 2019. But as I just said about practice 3, let's now get into those results and look at how close it was in the practice session. So here you go. Sebastian Vettel was P1 from Max Verstappen P2. He was only just under half a tenth off. Very surprising that Max was so quick. Bottas was P3, then Leclerc, Ricciardo ahead of Lewis Hamilton, then Hulkenberg, Albon, Giovinazzi, Kvyat, and then the bottom 10, Sainz, Perez, Gasly, Norris, Raikkonen, Magnussen, Grosjean, Stroll, Russell, and Kubica. Between 16th place and P1 was 1 second. I don't think we'll get that in qualifying, but if we do, then we are in for an absolutely brilliant qualifying session today at Monza. No doubt about that whatsoever. If it is going to be that close for pole position or any position on the grid from 16th or 17th up, it's going to be great today for sure. But as we usually do, let's now get into previewing how all the teams are going to do in qualifying today. So let's start off with Mercedes. They are definitely a lot closer to Ferrari than I was expecting. I did not think they would be as close to Ferrari as they have been during practice. I know practice has been a bit weird because of, certain weather conditions, but they should not be as close as they have been. And I think that's partly down to Ferrari probably not turning up their new Spec 3 power unit to the absolute max, or as high as maybe Mercedes are at the current point. But they're definitely closer than I thought they would be. I thought Ferrari would be at least half a second clear at the absolute best. I did not think it would be 1/10 of a second or 2/10 of a second. That is partly down to Mercedes trying out the toe, trying to, slipstream one another cars. That is definitely going to help if they do conduct that again in qualifying. But I think even if they don't, their car is genuinely closer to Ferrari than expected. And you never know. If one of the Ferrari drivers does make a mistake, or Ferrari make a mistake, I think a Mercedes can absolutely get on the front row and maybe pole position if Ferrari do have a very, say, mistake-ridden qualifying session. Hopefully, from a Ferrari point of view, they do not. But they're definitely there if Ferrari do mess up. Not quite. The gap is not quite like it was at Spa, put it that way. They're not as far off as they were at Spa. At Spa, Ferrari were miles ahead in qualifying trim. But this weekend, it is a lot closer, and that is, of course, great to see. But now let's go on to the home team, of course, Ferrari. Now, even though it is a lot closer at the top than we were expecting through practice so far, Ferrari are still the favourites for pole position because, again, I don't believe they turned up their new Spec 3 power unit as much as other teams have. And I think definitely there is more pace to come from Ferrari. I think they absolutely, because of the way their car is designed and because of the power unit they do have, I think Ferrari will be, absolutely right there for pole position, no doubt about it. Who will beat them? The only team that can beat them is, of course, Mercedes. All Ferrari have to do in my opinion, to get pole position is make sure they execute the speed when they need to and don't make an error. Basically, you know, conduct a session like they did at Spa last weekend. If they do the same as they did there, then I think at least Ferrari will get pole position, but they really should get the front row because their car is so suited to this type of circuit. Because as we know, the faster the circuit, the better the Ferrari car in qualifying will go. And this weekend, even though it's been closer, Ferrari have still topped all the sessions, and I think definitely they are the favourites for pole. Hopefully they don't disappoint their home fans because there's so many, you know, Tifosi at the track today, and they are expecting, they're not hoping, they are expecting at least pole position, if not a front row lockout. So they've got to do it in front of the Tifosi. But next up is Red Bull. And I have to say, Red Bull are a lot closer to Ferrari and Mercedes around this circuit than I thought they would be. Max Verstappen in practice 3 was only, just under half a tenth off better than the Ferrari. Again, I think the Ferrari is holding a bit back, but the Red Bull should not be anywhere near that close. So I think Red Bull genuinely do have a quick car this weekend. I think they probably are benefiting from using the toe off of certain cars. But I think, you know, forgetting that, I think the car, definitely in the middle sector, is looking very good. That Red Bull car is looking very good. And if we do get some, say, changeable weather conditions, say tomorrow, it doesn't look like, by the way, we're going to get any rain today. It's mostly sunny, I'd say, or, you know, the sun is breaking through the clouds. But if we do get rain tomorrow, I think Red Bull are in a very, very good position to at least get a podium, because that car does look very, very nicely balanced. But for Red Bull, you know, obviously Max Verstappen is going to start at the back anyway, so whatever he does in qualifying doesn't matter, and he won't be completing the entire session. He'll probably do Q1 and then sit out the rest of the session. So Alex Albon has to get P5 today. He cannot afford to be out-qualified by midfield cars. If he does get out-qualified by midfield cars, then essentially he's doing what Pierre Gasly was doing. And that is massively underperforming. He has to make sure that he qualifies at least P5. Because again, if it does rain on Sunday, I think a podium is possible for Alex Albon, because the Red Bull car does look very, very strong, especially when it comes to race simulations. So hopefully Albon can go out there and get a good result for Red Bull and himself today. But guys, let me know in the live chat, for the top 3 teams, what do you expect from them today? Do you think Mercedes are close enough to get pole? Do you think Ferrari are the favourites of pole? And where do you see Red Bull with Albon fitting into this equation? Do you think Red Bull can get in there with Albon? Or do you think it's, you know, P5 only for Alexander Albon today in qualifying? Let me know in the live chat room, and I'll make sure in a moment to read out your comments, and we'll get to them in just a moment. Just want to say though, before I get to them, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as I will be doing a recorded qualifying review later on, about an hour after, an hour and a half rather, after qualifying finishes. And then tomorrow we'll be live for the race watch along at 1:10 until about 4 p.m. for the build up to the race, then the race, and then of course the reaction to it. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my homepage, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. But I'll now come to you guys and see what you're saying in the chat. Jay Crail says Mercedes will be in the front. Mostly an F1 fan says whichever Ferrari gets the toe will get pole. Getting the toe today might be the difference between P1 and P4 if you're a Mercedes driver or a Ferrari driver. It really could be, because if you get the toe right, if you are not too close to get affected by dirty air, but you're close enough to get a slipstream, you could gain up to half a second. And of course, in Formula 1 terms, that is a lot. That is absolutely massive. So you could see Lewis Hamilton on pole for the main reason that he had a toe on his lap. It really, that really could happen. So I tend to agree with if a Ferrari driver does get pole, it will probably be because one gets more of a toe than the other. And of course, in qualifying last year at Monza, Kimi Raikkonen got pole position because he got Sebastian Vettel's toe. So it could be the difference today. Definitely look out for that in qualifying today. Mr. Random Guy, did you see F3 yesterday? It may be like that. Yes, I did. I watched qualifying, and that was an absolute disgrace. What was going on, and thankfully all the drivers that were involved in those ridiculous blocking got grid penalties because it was so ridiculous. It was taking the idea to way too far of an extreme. By the way, I just want to say, thankfully, the driver who was involved in the F3 crash this morning that was horrific as he hit a sausage curb through Parabolica and then went through the catch fencing. It's great to say that that driver, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he is fine and the marshals are fine, which is great news because that crash was absolutely terrifying. And I think that crash again illustrates why gravel traps have to come back, because gravel will slow the car down. If you have a high-speed failure, tarmac runoff will not slow the car down. It won't. It will just, maintain the speed of the accident. So I think gravel absolutely has to come back. But hopefully, people trying to get a toe in qualifying today, hopefully it won't be as ridiculous as it was in F3 in qualifying yesterday, because it was so bad, guys. The FIA officials actually red flagged the session and called it a day because it was so ridiculous. And obviously in F3 you have 30 odd cars, so it is a lot more busy. But when you have so many cars sat before Parabolica trying to pick up a toe, it is very dangerous for drivers behind, who of course are trying to do a lap and trying to complete a lap and trying to qualify wherever. So hopefully we don't see that today, but I think we might do, because we saw a couple instances in practice 3 where it kind of happened. So yeah, definitely look out for it, because that also will be something that will probably cause some controversy today for sure. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Let me look up, see what you guys are saying. Tonka would love to see Albon out-qualify Max. Well, Max is not going to go to Q3 anyway through the team's decisions, so he will out-qualify Max. It would be good, though, to see Max actually do the session, because, of course, we want to see, in qualifying, how close Albon can be. But, of course, that's not going to happen. But I think for Singapore, we will see that, because, of course, Red Bull are not going to take a grid penalty at Singapore, because that's a circuit that they can absolutely win the Grand Prix and get pole position. So I think in Singapore we will see what Albon can do. But yeah, I don't think Max Verstappen is today really going to do qualifying, because what's the point? He's going to start at the back anyway. So, there's no point in doing qualifying. Right, let me read out a couple more comments and then we'll come to the rest of the field. And let me look at some other teams here. Hope Lewis Hamilton, the comments here, sorry. Daniel says, hope Lewis Hamilton gets pole. Mr. Random Guy, will Kimi's lap record get beaten today? It probably will, because the cars this year are faster. I don't know how much it will be beaten by, but it will be beaten. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Kimi Raikkonen's lap record will be beaten. Probably by, I don't know, half a second. Maybe more. I don't think it'll be a second or anything like that, but I think half a second to 7/10 is probably what it'll get beaten by, because of course the cars aerodynamically are better now than they were a year ago, but also the power units are a lot more powerful than they were a year ago. So yeah, I think definitely that'll get broken. Charman LP want to see Ricciardo in the top 3. That's not going to happen. I know Ricciardo was pretty competitive in practice 3, but I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think Mercedes really had a smooth enough session to the point where you can say that they just couldn't, with Lewis Hamilton finish ahead of Ricciardo. So I think it will be nigh on impossible for Daniel Ricciardo to do that well. Good morning to Jungle Brother. Great to see you here. Tonka says, go Honda. Right, let me find one more comment and then we'll get to the midfield, because I do want to talk about them quite a bit. Sebastian says, I'm so confused, rather, why Mercedes are so close to Ferrari. Maybe Ferrari still haven't used their Spec 3 power button, but I still expect a Ferrari 1-2. Also, the chance of rain tomorrow has gone down. It was actually confirmed, by the way, Sebastian, that that Ferrari yesterday did not use a power button in practice. So that's why yesterday it was a lot closer than it maybe should be. And I think in practice 3 they also didn't use it. So I think you will, in qualifying, get to see what the new, Spec 3 power unit has. Maybe it has way more performance than we think. We'll see, of course, what Ferrari can produce from that brilliant power unit of theirs. But now, let's get into that midfield pack and start off with Renault. And Renault this weekend have been a lot better than I thought they would be. In practice 3, they were P5 and P7, clearly, at the front of the midfield. Not massively in terms of lap time, but in terms of position, they were very good. Will they replicate that? I don't think so in qualifying, but I think they'll get at least one car into the top 10. I'm not at the point yet where I can say that Renault are absolutely, categorically going to be on the 4th row of the grid. I don't think I'm in that position right now as of yet to say, that is a possibility. But I think definitely Daniel Ricciardo will be 9th or 10th, maybe 8th place. Hulkenberg will be probably inside the top 11 and be, seriously competing for a top 10 slot. So watch out for Renault, because they are definitely looking better than we were expecting. We were not expecting Renault to be as good as they have been. I thought Renault would be, say, kind of like what Haas have been this weekend. Say, on the fringes of the top 10, but they've been even better than that. So we'll see what Renault can do in qualifying today. Next up is McLaren. Of course, Lando Norris has a grid penalty and will start at the back. So whatever Lando Norris does today does not matter. Carlos Sainz, though, doesn't have the greatest, I think, chance of getting into the top 10. The McLaren this weekend has not been great compared to the other midfield teams. The car doesn't look bad. I think it's just lacking power, straight line speed, to get into the top 8 or 9 on the grid. They don't look as fast as Renault or Toro Rosso or Alfa Romeo at this circuit so far, to me. Yeah, for McLaren, not looking that great. Not looking that great. And again, as we said in the podcast midweek, and as I said last week, another reason why I think McLaren are not doing as well as we thought they would is because now they've stopped development on the 2019 car, and they stopped development on the 2019 car back in June, I believe. Now you're starting to see that, happen. You're starting to see them drop back because they're not developing the car like Alfa are, or especially Racing Point or Renault, because Renault brought some new parts to the last 2 races. So I think that's partly why also McLaren are not doing that well, and I think that will hurt them going forward, but they still should, of course, finish P4 in the Constructors. But McLaren, as long as they can compete with Carlos Sainz and try their best to get a toe and maybe get into the top 10, I think that would be a good result, but not looking great, I think, for McLaren. Next up is Alfa Romeo. Alfa have had a very weird weekend. Kimi Raikkonen, crashing in practice 1 did not help their start to the weekend. Also, it raining and then being dry and raining again on Friday did not help Alfa get in consistent running to really know where they are pace-wise. And the only fully dry session we've had so far this weekend was practice 3. And Alfa are not looking as strong as I thought they would, but they can definitely get into the top 10, no doubt about that. They are top 10 contenders for sure. Antonio Giovinazzi is looking very good this weekend. Of course, this is home race. He should be looking good. Kimi Raikkonen is not looking great so far, but I think once we get to qualifying, I think Kimi will be fine. And I think he will, produce some good lap times to get him into some decent positions considering where his teammate is or how quick the car is. Of course, we'll see in qualifying. But Alfa, I think Alfa will be between P8 and P11 today. They're definitely in the top 10 fight, no doubt about that. They probably have the 5th fastest car in qualifying today. Maybe 6th at worst, but I think 5th probably. And that should allow at least one of their drivers to get into the top 10, and hopefully for them they do, because they need to now start scoring points in the Constructors to start catching teams like Racing Point and of course Renault and Toro Rosso, because I think a top 5 Constructors finish is absolutely up for grabs. Next up is Haas F1. The pace of the Haas is meh. It's not that good. The Haas, to me, looks to be about the 7th or 8th fastest car. Probably 8th. They just don't have a good car. The current aero spec they brought to Spa and now Monza just isn't suited or good to this circuit. It just really is not. And that's why Haas, despite having the Ferrari power unit, can't really show how good they should be, especially when it comes to qualifying. But of course, they're going to drop back in the race because they have such bad tyre wear. So, who really cares what Haas do, to be honest, because they're not going to be good on race days. So we know what's going to happen. Even if they qualify 6th and 7th, they're going to drop back. So, yeah, not looking great for Haas. Hopefully they can do better than I think, but I think this is yet another throwaway weekend for the Haas F1 team. They've had too many of those weekends. This season, I have to say, for Haas, has been probably their worst season in Formula 1. 2016 was better than this. This year has just been so bad because no matter where they qualify, they know they won't finish in the points. They could, lock out the front row. They know they won't finish in the points. It is so bad. So bad. Next up, Toro Rosso, not looking so bad for them. Toro Rosso have been the surprise team so far this weekend. They've been consistently, with at least one of their cars, in the top 10. If they can continue that into qualifying, then I think Toro Rosso for the rest of the weekend, especially going into the race dry or wet, are looking great, because as we've seen on race day, the Toro Rosso car is one of the best in the midfield. If they can, with Kvyat, of course, not Gasly, because Gasly does have a grid penalty. And Gasly also is starting the Italian Grand Prix tomorrow at the back. If Kvyat can get into the top 10, even if it's 10th place, that is a great result, because I think from then on, going into the race, they can get even more out of the car and probably finish in the top 9 or top 8. So a top 10 finish for Daniel Kvyat is what they need to get. And of course, it'd be a great helping hand if they could get into the top 10, especially with their, Constructors' Championship fight for P5 with Renault, Racing Point, Alfa, not Haas, but, those other 3 teams, they're definitely in the fight with them for P5 in the constructors, and a top 10 starting position for Daniel Kvyat would sit nicely, I think, with Toro Rosso and also the Italian fans, because Toro Rosso, despite the Tifosi supporting Ferrari, you know, Toro Rosso are still an Italian team, so there is still some Italian pride there. Next up, Racing Point. Racing Point, I thought coming into this weekend would be very good, but they're not quite getting it all together. I think in qualifying they'll do better than they have done so far this weekend, because I don't think, kind of like Alpha, they just haven't had a smooth running program this weekend because of the rain, and, you know, Perez crashing in practice 1 didn't help. So I think Racing Point will do better, but I don't quite see them as good as I thought they would be, you know, before the weekend. Before the weekend, I thought Racing Point would definitely be getting both cars into the top 10. But after practice so far, I don't quite see that. It just doesn't seem likely to me with the practice we've had so far. You know, after practice in Spa, where I thought they would be good, they proved me to be correct. But so far this weekend, at Monza, they haven't. They just haven't quite had the pace that I was expecting them to have. Hopefully they can surprise me and, you know, finally show the pace that I, you know, have been expecting from them at this type of circuit. But of course, you never know what can happen. Maybe they'll do better. We'll see. I think with the two drivers they have, they really should do better. You've got Sergio Perez, who's finished on the podium here before, and Lance Stroll, who in 2017 started on the front row, and also Lance Stroll got last year's Williams into Q3 at this circuit. So they've got the drivers, but do they have the car? We'll see in qualifying. And finally, of course, is Williams. Williams are closer to the pack than they were at Spa. That's mostly because the lap is shorter, and of course, car differences at Spa tend to get elongated, especially in qualifying. So that's why, you know, if you do have a bad car, you'll end up even further behind in terms of lap time at a track like Spa compared to Monza. So they are closer this weekend, but they are, of course, at the very, very back. And yeah, they are going to qualify at the back. But good news for them is they won't start last, of course, because Norris, Verstappen, and who else is it? Gasly are starting at the back. So they'll start, what, 16th and 17th, I think? So there you go. Williams will actually not be at the back, starting wise. But guys, let me know in the chat, the live chat, for the midfield, what do you think will happen? Do you think Renault will maintain their good form this weekend? What do you think about McLaren? Do you think Alpha can finally produce the pace? And do you also think that for Racing Point? And for Haas, do you think they can do anything? And for Toro Rosso, are they dark horses in your guys' opinion? For qualifying today, let me know in the live chat, and I'll make sure to read out your comments in just a moment. But for the first time today, I'm going to quickly have a drink, and then I'll come to you guys in a moment. Right, so let's see what you guys are saying. Let me just have a look. Let me take a look here. Serugara, it's sad that now an achievement for Williams is not to get skipped. But they deserve it. Well, you know, this whole thing I've done since basically 2018 of, you know, basically skipping over Williams, I only do it because what is there to say about Williams? There isn't anything. They're bad. Everything about their car's terrible. There's not really ever going to be a weekend where they're going to do well. I did talk about them a lot more in Hungary because, of course, they weren't at the absolute back pace-wise with Russell, but again, what is there to say with Williams? They have such a bad car. They're basically like Caterham or Marussia back from 2012 or 2013. They're at the back, and that's where they are. Nib, great to see you, mate. Says, yeah, Renault looking good with that super skinny rear wing. Absolutely. They do have a very, very skinny rear wing. Also do Red Bull. Haas also have a very skinny rear wing. Alpha do as well. well, plenty of the teams have a skinnier rear wing than they'd run at, say, Singapore, which is, of course is the next circuit on the calendar. But there are certain teams that don't necessarily have to run as lower wing, like Ferrari are not running a very skinny wing. They are running a skinny wing, but not as skinny as the Red Bull, Renault, teams like that. And that's mainly because Ferrari have enough power from the power unit that they don't need to trim the wings out that much to cut drag. Haas, of course, though, do, because I've said before, the current aero spec on the Haas car has way too much drag on it. So that's why Haas are not utilising the power of the Ferrari power unit. Right, let me look at some other comments. Astro Stevo, great to see you, mate. He says, Renault dark horses, I hope that Toro Rosso will do well too, I think. You know what? It's a good thing to see, but Renault and Honda powered teams at the Temple of Speed are actually looking pretty good. Again, though, might be a toe as to why, they're doing well. It might be that, the toe helping them down the straights, but it's good to see they're not miles off like it was back in 2015 or 2016, where you knew that the Renault and Honda powered teams might as well not even turn up to qualifying because they were so slow in a straight line. So it's good to see that they're actually able to compete, for positions where they'd be at, say, at more aerodynamic efficient circuits. Right, let me take a look at some other comments here. Little Light says, what about McLaren? It's kind of meh lately. Again, that's because they're not developing the car anymore. And hopefully for their sake, they still finish 4th in the Constructors because of that. Because it would be a shame if they got massively caught by another team in the midfield for P4 in the Constructors. Because they've had a great season compared to their last 2 or 3 years, and they do deserve P4 in the Constructors because they've been the most consistent midfield team. And if it wasn't for Norris's Renault power unit failure at Spa, then there'd be another 6 or 8 points clear of Toro Rosso, who are currently in P5. I think McLaren, for the rest of the season, I think they'll be fine. They will score points again. They will struggle, though, compared to how they were doing, say, before the summer break. For example, when we come to Singapore, I don't think McLaren are going to be great because, again, lack of development at a track like Singapore does, really show up. And at other circuits like COTA, of course, a US Grand Prix circuit, once we get to Brazil and Abu Dhabi as well, it will show up there, but they should have enough with the car they have and the drivers they have. They should have just about enough to get enough points finishes still to get P4 in the Constructors. And if they can get P4 in the Constructors no matter what, even if they don't finish in the points again for the rest of 2019, then that is great, because that means that they can get all the money for finishing P4 in the Constructors Championship and then put that towards 2021 and even 2020 with the 2020 car that they're already developing. So yeah, look out for McLaren next year for sure, because I think McLaren are probably going to start the season off a bit closer to the top than they were at the start of this season. Because if you look at this season, McLaren did not start, they started well, but they didn't start great. They only became great in the midfield around France and Austria. So if they can start the season off like that, then it's a good, omen going forward for McLaren. But, right, let's read out some other comments here from you guys. Let me find some other comments. You said this in one of your previous previews about McLaren. What are you talking about? Meh, they're doing better than all the other midfield teams. In the Constructors, yeah, but in terms of pace, this weekend and Spa, their pace has not been, clearly better than the midfield teams. It hasn't. They haven't had that quick of a car this weekend or last weekend in Spa. I know Spa, Norris was P5 and he was going to finish there, but his car was not as quick as it was in Hungary. The McLaren car has only been, for me, genuinely very quick in Bahrain, Baku, Canada, France, Austria, Silverstone, and Hungary. All the other circuits, they were good, but they weren't, you know, the best midfield team or anything like that. So I think McLaren, as of late, are a bit meh pace-wise. Again, constructors-wise, yeah, it's great, but the pace of the car's not that great at the moment. But that's, of course, their own decision. Right, let me look at some other comments. Taslim, can you please get rid of the Williams on the screen? I will in a moment, because in a moment I am actually going to get onto my predictions for qualifying. So get those ready, guys. But I just want to read out a couple more comments, and then we'll get to those predictions. I want to make sure I get everyone's comments read out. Mr. Random Guy saying to me, did you know Kimi is still using old spec power unit? Yes, I did, but it's not only for him, of course. It's also for Antonio Giovinazzi and the two Haas drivers. So basically, going into Spa, we were told that the new Ferrari Spec 3 was in the Haas and Alpha. That wasn't true. Basically, they had a new version of the Spec 2 in the Alpha and Haas. So that is why they were probably doing better power-wise than maybe before. I don't know, because they had a fresher or an upgraded version. The only Spec 3 Ferrari power unit that I believe is being ran this weekend is by, of course, the Ferrari Works team. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. But I think that's the case. But, yeah, Alpha and Haas running an upgraded Spec 2, not a new Spec 3. Right. Let me look for one final comment. And then I will come to the predictions. By the way, thank you, Daniel, saying keep up the good work. Thanks, no problem. Thank you for watching, and hopefully if you're new, you'll come around for more and subscribe to the channel. Taslim Ahmed, I'll read out this one final comment. Why not Red Bull will beat Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship? I think Red Bull will beat Ferrari in the Constructors. I know Ferrari last weekend and this weekend they do have a faster car, but after this weekend, I don't see them outscoring Red Bull again until the end of the season. I don't see it, because Singapore, Ferrari are going to be so far behind in Singapore. They're going to be at least a second off pole, maybe more, because again, the differences in cars and the weaknesses of their car aerodynamically will be elongated because of the long lap in Singapore. Russia, they won't be good. Suzuka, they'll be better, but in the race they'll fall away. USA and Mexico, they won't be good. Brazil, again like Suzuka, they'll be good in qualifying, but they'll fall away in the race. And Abu Dhabi, the same as Brazil and Suzuka, I think, but to a lesser degree. So yeah, I think Red Bull will beat Ferrari in the Constructors. And I did actually have a comment on, I think, the podcast. We had a comment on the podcast saying, you know, how do you... someone was laughing at me saying Red Bull are still in the fight with Ferrari for second in the Constructors. And I think that person, to be honest, was forgetting the previous 7 or 8 races before Spa where Red Bull were consistently either matching Ferrari in terms of point scoring or outscoring them. So I think after this weekend you can expect Red Bull to really just take the fight to Ferrari and close in a lot, because I think Red Bull, aerodynamically, they've got a really good car. And that Honda power unit is really starting to come on now, especially now that they've got the new Spec 4 Honda power unit, I believe. But now, it is time, guys, to get on to my predictions for qualifying today at Monza. Make sure, guys, in the chat, to put yours in when I finish mine, and then for the last 15 minutes or so, I'll read your predictions out up until, of course, qualifying getting underway. Just want to say again, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as I will be doing a review of qualifying later on after the session finishes, and me and Nib will be live tomorrow at 1 until 4 p.m. UK time for the race watch along for the 2019 Italian Grand Prix. So don't forget to subscribe for that, as we do consistent watch alongs of practice to qualifying the race every single F1 race weekend. Bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe right there, or just go to my homepage, subscribe there and hit the notifications bell, and also hit the like button if you want to see the channel grow, because it does help out the channel if you do hit the like button, of course. And also, if you want to see this content continue, then make sure to hit the like button. But now, let's get into those predictions. And on pole position for the second week in a row will be Charles Leclerc, because the Ferrari car is very quick, and I think they do have the fastest car in qualifying trim. Not in race trim, I think Mercedes have the fastest race trim car. But when it comes to qualifying, I think Ferrari have what it takes. As long as they don't make an error, or Charles Leclerc doesn't make an error, then I think it really is Ferrari's and his to lose. The reason I go for Leclerc on pole is because I think Charles definitely, since Paul Ricard has been the faster qualifying driver than Sebastian Vettel, and I think he will be that way today. I think Charles will get the best out of the Ferrari car, even if he doesn't get pole for Ferrari and it's not a Ferrari on pole. I think he will be the fastest Ferrari driver for sure, because in qualifying as of late, he really has stepped up his game and improved a lot when it comes to that. But if Charles does get pole, of course, in Formula 1, it will be his first ever pole at Monza. And Ferrari are going for their 6th pole position at Monza since 2000. They've had pole in the 21st century in the year 2000, in 2003, 2004, 2010, and last year, of course, in 2018. So, yeah, today will be their 6th if they do get that in the 21st century. Sebastian Vettel, I think, will be in second because I think he'll be closer to Leclerc this weekend, because I think this circuit, Sebastian, to me, looks better on than Spa. Spa, he looked a bit scruffy and all over the place and was really only in second place at Spa in qualifying because of the car, not really because of himself, because he was quite poor in qualifying, I thought, at Spa. I think he will be second. He will be a lot closer. I think he'll probably be 0.2 of a second off of teammate Charles Leclerc in second place. And I think it will be close between, Sebastian and, say, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. But I think Sebastian will have enough power and, straight line speed from his car to go and get pole position. Not pole position, to go and get a front row alongside his teammate Charles Leclerc. I think the car is absolutely good enough to get the front row. If Sebastian, though, does get pole, it'll be his first pole position at Monza since 2013, where, of course, he got it that day for Red Bull, in a Red Bull front row lockout that day. And if Ferrari do get a front row, then it'll be their first front row since, last year at Monza, where, of course, Raikkonen put it on pole ahead of Sebastian Vettel. But that weekend, of course, did not end well for the Scuderia. And now, in third place, I'm going to go for Lewis Hamilton, because I think Lewis is the only driver to me who I can absolutely say for a guarantee will take the fight to Ferrari. So I think Lewis will be close to, say, Sebastian in qualifying. He might not be that close to Leclerc, but he won't be absolutely miles off like he was at Spa. And I think Lewis will definitely give the Ferrari drivers and cars, or team rather, something to worry about. But if Lewis does somehow get pole position, it will be his 7th pole position at Monza. He's had pole here at Monza in 2009, 2012, 2014, 15, 16, 17. So this would be his 7th if he does get it. And also the team Mercedes are going for their 5th pole position at this circuit since they came back into the sport in 2010. Very good record, but of course when they were getting those pole positions, that's when they had the best power unit on the grid, and of course they no longer have that. So it is going to be a tough qualifying session for the Silver Arrows, but Of course, because of how great of a team they are, you can never count them out because they rarely make mistakes. But guys, let me know for the next 14 minutes in the live chat, who do you think will get pole position? Who will finish in second? Who will finish in third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and etc. In fourth, fifth, and sixth, I'm going to go fourth, Valtteri Bottas. I think Valtteri will be actually very close to Hamilton. Fifth, Albon. And then in sixth place, I'm going to go for Daniel Ricciardo. No, not Daniel Ricciardo. Sorry, not Daniel Ricciardo. I'm going to go for... Kimi Räikkönen in P6. I'm still going to stick with the Alphas that I was going for, you know, in the preview in terms of who I thought would do well. I think Daniel Ricciardo will be good, but I don't think he'll be that high up. I'm going to go Kimi Räikkönen P6, and then after that, it's a lottery, isn't it? It really is a lottery in that midfield because of how close it is. But I'm going to quickly, guys, have another drink of water, of course, not alcohol. And then I'll come to you guys in the chat, and we'll count down the final minutes towards qualifying. And also, let me move on to this picture of course, a Ferrari flag. Because, of course, the only fans that are really in the grandstand are the Tifosi. Apparently, there is Max Verstappen fans around, though. Not as many, of course, as the Tifosi, but they have travelled to the Italian Grand Prix. So, be interesting to see if they can be heard this weekend. But let me see what you guys have to say. And let me go to the first one. And then we will count all the way down. Right. Let me find the first one. Right, the first one is from Evidence Reba, I think it is, who says Hamilton, Leclerc, Vettel, Bottas, Albon, and Gasly. Of course, so remember, Gasly does have to start from the back, so he probably won't even go to Q3 because he won't want to or decide to. Let me find the next one. Mostly an F1 fan says Ferrari. Of course, he doesn't know who is going to actually get the pole. Hamilton, Bottas, Ricciardo, Albon, Hülkenberg, Raikkonen, Kvyat, Giovinazzi. Timio Parker, can we get wet predictions also? It's not going to be wet, so that's why I'm not going to do that today. But for the race tomorrow, I will bear that in mind and also make predictions for wet, for a possible, wet race, because it is a lot more possible tomorrow than it is today. Today is probably going to be the best day weather-wise at the circuit, during the race weekend. So, yeah, don't think we're going to get rain. Right, Astro Stevo says he thinks it'll be Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas, Vettel, Ricciardo, Kimi. Little Light says Vettel on pole from Leclerc in second. Mr. Labman, that's a good name. Albon, Hamilton, Vettel. Let me find some others if I can. Right, Tonka, Lewis, Charles, Bottas, Vettel, Albon, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Kvyat. Who else have we got here? Matthew Felton said it before, but Vettel P1, then Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon. And then he gives his race prediction. Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc, Bottas, Albon, Max. Harith Zach. Let me get his prediction up. He says Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton, Albon, Bottas, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Hülkenberg, Giovinazzi, and Daniel Kvyat. Let me just move on to a different picture. There you go, of Lewis Hamilton in the rain from yesterday. Kerrang goes Kubica, Stroll, Norris. Gina says Bottas, Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Albon. Let me see if there's any others. Savage Sav says Vettel, Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Ricciardo. Zerugara says Hamilton, Leclerc, Vettel, Bottas, Raikkonen, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, and Kvyat. By the way, Eugene Kelly, yes, I did see the crash, and it was absolutely terrible, wasn't it? Terrible crash into F3, but thankfully, the driver who had that crash is okay, and the marshals are okay. That's the main thing. Taslim says Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton, Max, Bottas, Albon, Ricciardo, Kimi, Hulkenberg, Kvyat. Who else have we got here? Twin Prime says Vettel, Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas. Sebastian says Vettel, Hamilton, Leclerc, but I've got a bad feeling that Leclerc will get his lap deleted. By the way, that's one thing I've got to mention is the FIA have come out and said that if you do go all four wheels off of the circuit on the parabolic exit, of course on the the green tarmac bit, then the lap you are currently on will be deleted and your next lap will be deleted because of course going that wide gives you a great run onto another lap. So I think we will see some time deletions, not many, because I think the drivers are very, high quality. I don't think they're going to be crashing or going that wide a lot. Thankfully, that speed bump is gone on the Parabolica runoff area. But, yeah, that's one thing to look out for. But, if we had the old Parabolica gravel trap, we wouldn't be talking about this, would we? Because the guy this morning wouldn't have caught air, he would have just stopped in the gravel or continued very slowly out of it, and we would never ever talk about track limits. But no, we need to get rid of the gravel for, I don't know, some reason that I don't think makes any sense anymore. Right, let me get back to some other predictions. Sharman LP says Vettel, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Raikkonen, Perez, Kvyat. Right, let me look. Other comments. Eugene Kelly, Hamilton, Leclerc, Vettel. Jess, no limit edition. Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas, Verstappen, Albon. And that's all I've got to so far. But there's also another thing I've got to talk about, and it is not very bad news because we might see an improvement in this certain person's condition. But I do have, guys, bad news. Of course, the F2 crash between Antoine Hubert and Juan Manuel Correa happened last week, and we know that Antoine was sadly took away from us. Juan Manuel Correa, of course, was took to hospital. He broke, a couple legs, his two legs, and had a back injury, I think, as well. He was transferred to a London hospital, but sadly, he is currently in a critical but stable condition and is in a induced coma in intensive care and has had a acute respiratory failure. And that is a very bad thing if you guys know what that means. And I do know what that means, and I don't really want to talk about it. But I just want to say, let's all pray for Juan Manuel Correa to pull through, because it would be so bitterly sad if we had a 20-year-old, very good up-and-coming driver took away, as well as Antoine Hubert, who was also a very good young up-and-coming driver. So please, everyone, pray for Juan. Hopefully he can come through. The entire motorsport community is behind him. We want to see him pull through and, if possible, become a racing driver again. But all we can do, again, is say, thoughts and prayers to his family, and hopefully he can pull through this very, very difficult time for the motorsport community. And there's a picture of a Red Bull. Right, let me read out a couple more predictions. The Bear Attack says Albon, Leclerc, Bottas, Ricciardo, Kvyat. That's a bit surprising. And yeah, people saying in the chat, big prayers. Yeah, I thought after we had confirmation of his injuries, I thought he would be fine relatively compared to what it what I was fearing it was going to be for him. But this is a sad turn of events, and hopefully it doesn't get any worse. If this is the worst it gets, then that's the only positive we can take, that it won't get any worse than this. But who knows what will happen. Hopefully one can pull through. Astro Stevo, what is the weather at Monza now for today? It is, I'd say, light cloud, basically. Yeah, we've got sun, but a bit of cloud as well. And yeah, as Astro Stevo says, broken legs and spinal injuries is pretty serious. It is, but I didn't think it would lead to that. It is a sad turn of affairs. Sharman LP, was it a result of the crash? I think both. I think his condition has deteriorated. However the hell you say that word. Because of the crash. Because, well, unfortunately, his body, has took a very hard hit from that accident. But let's move on from that, because it's very sad, and hopefully we'll have some good news to talk about soon enough when it comes to him. But I just want to let anyone know who is watching live for the first time today what we do for watch-alongs on the channel. So, of course, I cannot show live coverage of a session because that would be breaking copyright law, and obviously I don't want to do that. So what I will show is pictures. But one thing that is new, if you guys who do come along regularly, you'll know that I pull pictures from Twitter. What I now have is a slideshow of pictures that I will just leave playing during the session, and what it'll be is one picture every 3 minutes. So one picture every 3 minutes. That should be good enough, and that should keep you guys entertained enough during the session. And that also will mean that my computer will now no longer glitch as bad as it did a week ago for qualifying a Spa, because I won't have to open a new tab and go to Twitter and hope that everything works out. So yeah, that's what we do. And also I'll have a live running order running along the bottom of the screen to show you the live order. I'll update it as soon as I can, every time that I can during the session, during Q1, Q2 and Q3. I will provide a radio commentary of what is going on. So if you're out and about or at work, I will keep you up to date for sure as to what is going on. And also, if you are watching the session and you do want to sync up with me, then pause your device for about 45 seconds to a minute and then press play again, and you should be synced up, because the device that I watch Formula 1 on does have a bit of a delay. So yeah, if you pause for that long, then you should be synced up with me. But if you're unable to watch, or if you don't want to sync up, then that's absolutely fine, and I'll just provide the radio commentary as I just said. Yeah, we have 2 minutes to go until qualifying gets underway at Monza, and it's definitely a lot better weather conditions than it was on Friday. On Friday, it was dry, then it was wet, then it was dry, then it was wet, then it was dry. It was all over the place. Rain is still in the area, as I'm seeing on my TV. There is rain in the area, but it's not anywhere over Monza at the moment. So we should have a fully dry and not hot Italian Grand Prix qualifying session, but warm enough for the tyres to be in good temperature and stuff like that. But now I will get everything ready. I'll get the timers ready and the text up there ready. So of course, qualifying Q1 is 18 minutes. And then of course Q2 is 15 minutes. And then Q3 is 12 minutes, which of course is the shootout, where we'll see who will get pole position. And there you go. And let me get the timer ready. Yep, there you go. So we'll get that all underway in just a moment, and I'll get the slideshow pictures up in a moment as well. As on the TV, on my TV, we're seeing the FOM illustrating how track limits abuse at the final corner will now be punished. And good, because you have to punish track limits abuse, because the drivers only go out there to gain more time. If they weren't out there, then if they're not out there, then that means they're not going to gain time, of course, or they know they can't gain time out there. So you've got to give them a deterrent to not going out there. But now we're seeing Charles Leclerc in his beautiful red Ferrari car, as he's going to come out onto the track probably a couple minutes into the session, I'd imagine. Now we're seeing on the TV Lewis Hamilton, who is getting strapped in, getting his headrest bolted in. And he is getting ready for another fight for pole position, which of course he's in the fight for pole position at every single Grand Prix, because he's so great and so is his car. And the big Ferrari flag is flying high from the Scuderia Ferrari Club. And they are expecting at least pole position today at Monza, if not a front row lockout, considering how dominant they were at Spa. And qualifying is going to get underway in about 5 seconds time, and qualifying 1 and qualifying is underway now. Let me also get that running order up. By the way, this is not the live running order, that's the running order from practice 2. I'll update it once all 20 times for the first time have been set in qualifying 1, which should be in, what, 5 minutes or so. And also, let's get the slideshow up, and there you go. So there you go. There'll be one picture every 3 minutes, and hopefully that will keep you guys nicely entertained. But yeah, here we go. As there is some Alpha / Kimi Raikkonen fans in the grandstand. Great to see that. Of course, Kimi is a favourite of the Italian fans because he's a Ferrari world champion, Ferrari race winner, and is still driving technically for an Italian team, because Alfa Romeo are Italian, even though they're owned by a Swedish company. And out comes a Williams of Robert Kubica, who does live in Italy and is quite fluent in Italian. So this is probably like a home race to Robert, as he now comes into turn 1 and turn 2. And by the way, guys, I finally remembered what the first chicane is called. It's the Rettifilo chicane. I was forgetting what it was yesterday. I know the second chicane is the Della Rosia, but I was forgetting what the first one is called. The first one is the Rettifilo chicane. Lovely, by the way, to have proper names for corners, not just, turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As Toro Rosso's on circuit now, Kvyat and Gasly. So is Lance Stroll and the Williams of George Russell. And let me just see who else is on track. Lando Norris is out on circuit. So is Sergio Perez, Antonio Giovinazzi, Kimi Raikkonen. Have I said that before? I don't know. But yeah, Kimi Raikkonen on circuit. So plenty of cars coming out, and yet it's a very warm track temperature now compared to what it was this time yesterday, as the Toro Rossos are just starting their outlaps, and they've got a queue of cars behind them. And if they're doing what I think they're doing already, they're trying to get ready for a tow. This is already looking ridiculous. The two Haases are on circuit. That's of course Kevin Magnussen and Roman Grosjean, and Robert Kubica has just started his first lap in qualifying, as Daniel Kvyat is currently warming up his soft compound tyres in the Honda-powered Toro Rosso, which is looking pretty good at their home race this weekend. And now they come through the Ascari chicane on their outlaps, and now they get ready to pick up a bit of a tow, of course, for their first qualifying run, so they can try and get a good slipstream, because of course if you do get a good slipstream, that can gain you half a second on the straights. So it is definitely something worth having. And now we've got Pierre Gasly starting his first lap of qualifying. He will be starting from the back, but he wants to give it everything and see what the Toro Rosso car has got, as Perez and Giovinazzi and Kvyat are all starting their laps as well, and Raikkonen and Stroll. As Gasly comes to the first sector, 27.5 for the first sector. Kvyat already 0.2 of a second up. Gasly kicking up some gravel, and so is Kvyat. Kubica has done a lap time of 1:23.9, which is very, very slow at this point of qualifying. As Pierre Gasly now comes flying down to the end of the middle sector to the entry to the Ascari chicane, the best chicane in Formula 1. And Kvyat is now 0.3 up on this lap. So Daniel doing a very good effort for his first run, as Pierre Gasly now swings it into the final corner, the Parabolica, another great corner at this circuit. And I couldn't quite see if he went all four wheels off. I don't think he did. Pierre Gasly goes P1, of course, on a 21.4, but Daniel Kvyat goes faster on a 21.2. Lance Stroll does a 21.2 and goes 0.02 of a second slower than Kvyat. And then Perez goes third. Norris now third. Kimi Raikkonen now goes P1 by 0.25 of a second. Is a replay of Gasly kicking up gravel on the exit of the Della Rosia chicane. And that won't cost him time because it didn't really slow the car down. You've got to extend the corner in Formula 1 if you want to get the most out of the car. Got to use as much track as possible to extend and get the pace out of your car. As Sebastian Vettel is on medium tyres and is now on track on an outlap, and so is Charles Leclerc, and the two Renaults of Ricciardo and Hülkenberg, and the Red Bull of Alexander Albon. Antonio Giovinazzi, by the way, is now P1. Carlos Sainz P2 ahead of Raikkonen, Grosjean, Kvyat, Stroll, Magnussen, Norris, Perez, Gasly, Russell and Kubica. And as I thought, that lap by Kubica was very slow because he's already 1.8 seconds slower than teammate Russell. And of course, that is not good, as Sebastian Vettel for Ferrari starts his first qualifying run on the medium compound tyres. The reason they're doing it on the mediums is because the tyres are so good around here in terms of tyre wear that starting on the soft compound is not an issue at all, in the same way it wasn't at Spa. As Vettel comes to the end of the first sector, he's a 1/10.5 down on Antonio Giovinazzi. I will say though, as he kicks up some gravel also, if they can't switch those medium tyres on quick enough, Ferrari, then they might be in trouble later on and might have to use the soft tyres anyway. So we'll see what they do. As Sebastian, let's see what his middle sector time is. It is still a 1/10.5 down on Giovinazzi, so he'll probably go into P2 with this, maybe P3. Charles Leclerc, though, is currently faster than Giovinazzi by a 1/10.5. So Charles Leclerc doing a very good first run on the medium compound tyres. As Sebastian Vettel rounds the Parabolica and comes to the line, and what's his first time of qualifying? It's a 120.8, goes P3. Charles Leclerc goes P1 by 0.25 of a second. Daniel Ricciardo now goes P1, but Ricciardo was on softer tyres. Now Hülkenberg goes P1, but also Hülkenberg on a softer compound compared to Charles Leclerc. But currently it's a Renault 1-2. If you're a Renault fan, start celebrating, because I don't think you'll see this for a long time. A Renault 1-2 so far in qualifying. Yeah, that is weird. Alex Albon, by the way, is currently on a lap, and the two Mercedes cars, Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton, are on outlap. So as soon as, they complete their first times of the qualifying session with 10 minutes to go now in qualifying, I will update the order to what it is going into the final run of course of qualifying, as Alexander Albon goes P3, slower than the two Renaults. Raikkonen has just gone 5th. The Alphas are looking a lot better. Perez not looking that great. He's just gone up to P14. And we've still got Verstappen, Bottas and Hamilton to do a lap. I don't know, though, if Verstappen is even going to bother. As here comes Valtteri Bottas round the Parabolica, and he now starts his lap, and now so does Lewis Hamilton, who will try to pick up a slight tow down the straights. As Bottas now on the soft compound tyres heads down towards turn number 1. And car looking very good, very nicely balanced. This car definitely is better in the corners than the Ferrari. It just doesn't quite have the power, which of course at this circuit is vitally important. As Valtteri comes to the end of the first sector and is 4/10 down on Hülkenberg. That is a lot. And Hamilton is 3/10 down as Bottas has picked up something on his left front tyre. I think it was a bit of a sticker or something. Looked like an old qualifying tyre from the 1980s, that did. As Bottas comes through Lesmo 1 and 2. Now onto the second DRS straight, coming down on the entry to the Ascari chicane. And Valtteri is not doing a great lap on the soft tyres. To be honest, he might even go slower than Leclerc, who was on mediums. This is not great by Valtteri Bottas at all. As he now comes down to the Parabolica. Great performance on turning there for Bottas. Oh, he was almost 4 wheels off there, but he just kept it on. And Bottas goes P2 by 1/1000th of a second. Hamilton goes P3, so Hülkenberg still P1 on soft tyres. That is a surprise. Do Renault really have the pace? We'll see later on, of course. Vettel does another lap on the mediums and goes P5. Charles Leclerc goes P1 on the mediums. That Ferrari with Charles Leclerc is very, very quick. That's a stunning first or second lap there for Leclerc. 20.1 on medium tyres. As Lewis Hamilton at the Parabolica, they've just shown a replay of him skimming the Astro. And Max Verstappen, by the way, is now on a lap. So once he completes his lap, I will then update the running order going into the final 7 minutes of the first qualifying session. And no, Max Verstappen's still sat in the pit, so you know what? I'm going to do it right now. So Leclerc is P1, and then it is Nico Hülkenberg. Let me just get rid of the caps lock. Nico Hülkenberg in P2. In the Renault, Bottas P3, Lewis Hamilton is P4, and then it's Daniel Ricciardo in P5. 6th is Vettel, but he's on medium tyres. He can definitely go, you know, quite a bit faster than that if he was on the soft tyres. And then it is Alexander Albon in P7. P8 is Kimi Räikkönen. Plenty of drivers have come back in now because of their tyres have gone, of course, and their fuel is probably gone as well. So, yeah, Räikkönen P8. Antonio Giovinazzi is in P9. P10 is Kvyat. P11 is Carlos Sainz. Norris is P12, but again, Norris will start from the back, so whatever he does not matter. As a Ferrari, I think of Vettel and Leclerc both doing another run, and Leclerc is providing the tow to his 4-time world champion teammate. To see, of course, if it does work, and well, it does. As long as you don't cause a massive dirty air effect to occur. Lance Stroll is 14th, Gasly 13th, by the way. Kevin Magnussen is in 15th, and then it's Roman Grosjean in 16th. So yeah, Haas are looking terrible. And then it is Perez, Russell, Kubica, and Verstappen. Verstappen has not yet, guys, set a lap. So that's why Max is at the back. And yeah, there you go. So with 5 minutes to go, who will get into, or who will get out of the drop zone? You've got Grosjean, Perez, and of course Russell and Kubica, but the Williamses are not going to get through. as Vettel rounds the final corner and goes into the pits. Red flag. Red flag. With 4. Let me hide that timer because, of course, we've got a red flag and the timer is stopped. We have a red flag for some reason. Oh, someone's broken down. Oh, it's Sergio Perez, who is in the drop zone, so he's out of qualifying. Oh, that is such a shame. He had a reliability issue at Spa in practice and was lucky to get away with not having to take a penalty. But now we'll start in 17th and might as well take a penalty. Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame because Perez really does like this circuit. He really does. And here's a replay on the TV, and yeah, he knows he's got an issue and decides to just pull into the opening in the barriers, and he is out of qualifying in 17th place. But he will probably take a penalty and start at the back anyway. So that is a shame. But let me now. Have I got the order fully updated? Let me just check. Whilst we've got a red flag. Yes, I have. So yeah, we've got 4 minutes and 34 seconds to go. And yeah, we've got 4 minutes and 34 seconds to go. And in the drop zone, Grosjean, Perez, Russell, Kubica and Verstappen. So really, the only 2 drivers in the drop zone, if Max does a proper lap, are the 2 Haas's, because Verstappen will go up and, you know, Magnussen, who is in P15, will come down. But that is a shame for Perez. That's a real shame. And let me just update this. Let me just move this picture up a bit. There you go. That is a shame. That really is a shame. By the way, guys, I will reset the timer once we get back down to the 4 minute mark, because I can't do, you know, to the second. I can do to the minute though. And Albon went all 4 wheels off at the Parabolica. That's going to be a time deletion, and session will restart in about 30 seconds, or probably right now. And yeah, Albon was off the circuit. So will Albon get a time deletion? We'll have to see. We'll have to see if he does. But yeah, the session will get underway in just a moment. So it is Leclerc, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Hamilton, and Ricciardo, Vettel, Albon, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Kvyat, Sainz, Norris, Gasly, Stroll, Magnussen, and in the drop zone, Grosjean, Perez, Russell, Kubica, Verstappen. Perez, of course, is out because he's just had a failure. Verstappen, if he doesn't do a lap, he will be out. So it's really between the 2 Haas's, Gasly and Stroll, to get into qualifying 2, I think. By the way, good performance by the 2 Alphas and Kvyat, and also the 2 Renaults, to be as close to the top teams as they are at the moment. As the session is in a minute about to get underway, and the timer has restarted. So I will get the timer back up in just a moment once we get down to the 4 minute mark, as the cars are now going to come back out onto the circuit and try and, of course, improve their current time in case they get knocked out. As Max Verstappen still in his pit box or garage. And the Toro Rosso boys waiting to send out their drivers. And let me get the timer up right now. So there you go. 4 minutes to go in qualifying 1. Qualifying 1 it is. And yeah, in the drop zone, really, the only drivers at risk of getting knocked out, I think, are the 2 Haas drivers, because they do not have good pace in the car. And you know, Verstappen, if he does do a lap, he should improve quite a bit on his current run. And all the drivers are sat in the pits waiting for when they go out. And I think what's going to happen here is a bit of a ridiculous situation. What we're going to see is they're all going to come out at the same time, and they're all going to back up in the final part of the lap to get a tow. So we might see some dangerous driving soon. And yeah, look, they're all now coming out of the pits at the same time. Get ready for a disgraceful incident, because I think it'll be happening pretty soon. I think we're going to have lots of backing up and jostling for position. And Max Verstappen, by the way, is on circuit. He's on an outlap. It says on the FOM graphic. The only drivers not on circuit are the top 7. That's the 2 Renaults, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Mercedes, and Alex Albon. As the drivers from 8th until 20th, except of course for Sergio Perez, are now on an outlap. And we'll see if we do get any backing up in a moment. As the Ferrari mechanics are now bringing out the tyres, and the Ferrari cars are going to come out and do a just to make sure qualifying lap, I think. Just to make sure they get through and they don't get knocked out, because the gap between Leclerc and Grosjean is not massive. It's only a second, but I don't think Roman will improve by that much. And yet, plenty of cars. Oh, we got a Haas there passing a Williams. And all these cars, again, they're trying to get a slipstream. So that's why they're all backing up, weaving, so they can get a tow down the straights. Because that could be the difference between P16 and P9, or P8. It really could be. Because from P8 to P16 is only half a second. And you gain about half a second in the slipstream, as here comes, I believe, Max Verstappen in his incredibly small rear-winged Red Bull into the Rettifilio chicane. And the Red Bull looking pretty good to me. As also the 2 Alphas have started their lap. So has Gasly, Norris, the 2 Haases. As Max is coming to the end of the first sector and he is letting cars through. So yeah, Max is out of qualifying. That was a pointless, just a pointless exercise for Max Verstappen. He's now pulling out the way of everyone. As the 2 Alphas have not improved on their first sector so far, which is a bit of a worry, of course. Hopefully Max doesn't hold up any cars. As Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel still on an outlap. I don't know if they're actually going to do a lap. And here come the 2 Alphas. Raikkonen, only 3/10 off Charles Leclerc for the middle sector. The Alpha of Kimi Raikkonen looking very good. And Albon has had his time deleted. His 120.4 has been deleted. So where does that put him then? Is he out? I don't know. But Kimi Raikkonen comes to the line, and Kimi Raikkonen stays P8, does not improve his time. Neither does Antonio Giovinazzi. Grosjean goes P12, Magnussen goes 8th, Kubica 19th, Gasly goes 8th, Gasly did the fastest middle sector. Daniel Kvyat goes P12, Lando Norris goes P11, Carlos Sainz goes P8. Lance Stroll's on a great lap. And where does Lance Stroll go? Well, P12. Not that great, but he did the fastest first sector. So, where is Roman Grosjean? Is Roman Grosjean out? Yes, he is. Yes, Roman Grosjean is out. So, that is the end of Q1. And out in Q1 are the drivers that were in the drop zone anyway. Grosjean, Perez, Russell, Kubica and Verstappen. Of course, Verstappen is starting at the back anyway, so there's no point of him doing a lap. He was only out there just to test out that the Honda could switch on, basically. So Sainz was in P8, and then it was Gasly, Magnussen, Raikkonen in P11, then Stroll, Norris. So Raikkonen, Stroll, Norris 13th, and then Giovinazzi and Kvyat. So both Toro Rossos make it through to Q2. That's pretty good. I didn't expect that coming into the weekend, if I'm being totally honest, but there you go. And again, out in qualifying 1, Roman Grosjean, Sergio Perez, George Russell, Robert Kubica, and Max Verstappen. as qualifying 2 will be getting underway in, 2 or 3 minutes time. So let me get the timer ready for that. Of course, qualifying 2, 15 minutes it is. So that'll be getting underway soon. Let's read out what you guys have to say. Astro Stevo saying Stroll into Q2 for the second time. That's good. If he can qualify in P12 at the very worst, I think Stroll is in for a definite points finish because he's very consistent at the races. Very consistent. And can I just say, I have been criticised a lot for not liking Lance Stroll as a driver. I have been very critical of him. If he does start to improve his qualifying, you know what? I think he could be a pretty good driver. And I am actually starting to like him a bit. So, yeah, hopefully he keeps it up and hopefully he can get to the top 10. That'd be great if he could. That'd be, honestly, great. Q2 will start in 3 minutes. So, qualifying 2 underway in 3 minutes' time. As we're seeing a replay on the TV of Max Verstappen at turn 1 and turn 2. He did the corners and then he basically gave up, or his Honda power unit gave up, I don't know. But, yeah, he's starting at the back anyway, so it doesn't really matter if his Honda power unit gave up or not. Right, let me read out the comments from you guys. By the way, hello to the 450 people watching live. Great to see you all. And hopefully, if you are new, you'll subscribe because we do this for every race weekend. Practice 2, qualifying and the race. We do it for the watch along. So don't forget to subscribe for that. And hit the like button if you can. Carl Dini, Stroll can't qualify, but he can race. You can't doubt that. He's a very good race driver, but he needs to sort out qualifying. If he sorts out qualifying, Lance could be a very good driver, but he has to sort out qualifying because if he does get into a better car and a better situation later on in his career, then that will be quite a big stumbling block for Lance Stroll in his efforts to be a good Formula 1 driver, because even though of course points are scored on a Sunday, you've got to be close enough to where you want to finish on the Saturday to give yourself a better chance, of course, of, you know, getting to that position. So if he sorts out qualifying, you've got a good racing driver on your hands. Racing point. And we're just seeing replays on Sky F1 of Albon going just, well, not just over, but he was on that time actually in the quadrant. Let me read some other comments from you guys. Sekai Hybrid. I hope for Max that was Spec 3, otherwise that's a great start for him with Spec 4. He probably does have the Spec 4 in at the moment. That's probably why he went out to just test if it actually, you know, is working fine. He basically did a glorified installation lap. He didn't really do anything, did Max. But yeah, tomorrow's race will be an interesting one for Max, especially if the rain does come down. But I need to get the text ready because qualifying 2 is about to get underway at Monza. And this is going to be a very good session because the midfield looks very, very close. We could honestly have anyone out in Q2. Maybe the Renaults if they don't get it right. You don't know. It's that close. Only half a second separating P1 and P16 in Q1. I know the top 7 didn't do a lap at the end, but it's close. You've got to make sure you get it right. If you don't, you're in trouble. And yeah, we'll be getting qualifying 2 underway very shortly. And the fans are at the track. Getting ready. And there's on my TV, Peter Sauber in the Alpha garage. Of course, Sauber technically are Alfa Romeo. It's just Sauber rebranded as Alpha. And without him, I don't think this team is on the grid, to be honest. Because he, of course, took it from the sports car world to the Formula 1 world. And, you know, helped it out massively. But the timer has already started and I've missed the syncing up point. So I'll do it in about 40 seconds time. We've got 14.5 minutes to go in qualifying 2. And for sure, the top teams have to start on soft tyres. No way you can get through on mediums unless you turn your power unit up to, I don't know, 11 or something like that. But the Renaults, I have to say, are looking good. Hülkenberg and Ricciardo looking strong in the 2 Renault Works cars. Can they maintain that? Hopefully they can. It'd be great if they could, especially if there is rain around tomorrow. And I'll sync up the timer right now. So there you go. 14 minutes to go in qualifying 2. And everyone at the moment is in the pits. So there's nothing going on for the moment. We'll see who the first on track is. If I was a top team, I'd go out now, to be honest, to try and get my lap in and not get held up behind any traffic. Because traffic, even though you try to get a slipstream off of other cars, traffic can be an issue here. It was, I remember, for Lewis Hamilton in 2013. He got held up behind a force injury of Adrian Sutil and ended up qualifying P12 when he should have been in the top 3 or 4. And yet we have cars on track. Magnussen, Stroll and Kvyat, the first 3. Stroll and Kvyat are going to be very close to getting knocked out. They're going to be very close on the crossover between getting into Q3 and getting knocked out. And Kevin Magnussen maybe as well, as the 2 Mercedes cars are out on circuit. Bottas and Hamilton. So is Sebastian Vettel. Now the 2 McLarens of Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Now the 2 Ferraris and the 2 Renaults. The only drivers left are the 2 Alphas, Albon and Gasly. And hopefully they come out on track pretty soon. As Hamilton and Bottas are now coming through the Curva Grande down to the, not the Rettifilio, the Della Rosia chicane, the second chicane. Both on soft tyres. The 2 Alphas are out on circuit now, and so is Albon. Gasly is not, and I think that's probably because he has to start at the back anyway. So he will probably not come out in this session. Hopefully he does, but I don't think that he will. As Vettel and the 2 McLarens and Leclerc and the 2 Renaults warming their tyres up on the second DRS straight, heading down towards the Ascari chicane. And here we go, a lap. Who is this on a lap going through the Rettifilio chicane? It's Daniel Kvyat. Let's see what Kvyat can do for his first run. Kvyat could end up in a very good grid position by the end of today. Could be P8 or P9, you never know. He's got a very quick car today. Kvyat does quite a slow first sector. Yeah, quite a slow first sector that was. Magnussen has done a pretty quick first sector. Let's see what Kvyat can do for the middle. Toro Rosso does look good grip-wise, as the Ferraris and Mercedes and Renaults and McLarens and all those cars now start their lap. And Kvyat does a 54.1 for the middle sector. Magnussen is just behind and 3/10 up so far on this lap, but Kvyat did do a quicker middle sector, if you can try and find your way through that mess. Kvyat now through the Parabolica and doing the Parabolica just as you should, and comes to the line, and Daniel does a 1:21.0, not that quick. Magnussen goes 4/10 faster on a 1:20.6, that's more like it. Lance Stroll comes to the line and goes second on a 1:20.9. Valtteri Bottas is out there, not exactly setting the world alight, but he comes into the Parabolica. And where will Valtteri Bottas go? Comes to the line. Does Valtteri yellow flag in sector 2 for some reason? Valtteri goes 6/10 faster than Magnussen in P1. Lewis Hamilton goes 3/10 faster. Vettel goes second by 9 thousandths of a second. Charles Leclerc is coming to the line. Carlos Sainz goes P4. Charles Leclerc goes P1 by 1/10.5. Daniel Ricciardo goes P4 on a 19.8. That Renault really is quick. And Hülkenberg goes 6th. We've still got Norris and the 2 Alphas and Albon to do a lap. So we'll see what they can do in just a moment. And so Giovinazzi goes 12th, I think I just saw that. And oh, that's what it was. Raikkonen into Lesmo 1, turned in, oversteer, and he went into the gravel. That's not what you want if you're Kimi Raikkonen, and he now pits. Right, so let's now do the running order. So it is Leclerc P1 by only a 10th in Q2. Hamilton is second. Let me get rid of the caps again. P3 is Sebastian Vettel, as Lando Norris is on another lap, I think. Yes, he is. Vettel is P3. Ricciardo is P4. That's a stunning effort. He's only 3/10 off P1 at the moment. Ricciardo P4. P5 is Valtteri Bottas. Norris here getting a great slipstream off the Ferrari. And now swings it into the Parabolica. Now we'll get a slight slipstream of the cars ahead. So Norris should do a good lap time here. And Norris comes to the line. And no, he doesn't. He goes P12. 10th down on Lance Stroll, who is currently in the top 10. But Bottas is P5. Albon is P6. And only 0.003 of a second slower than Bottas. If I was Valtteri Bottas, I'd be worried about that time. Not in terms of getting into the top 10, but for later on, because that's not a good lap time. Albon is 6th. And then you've got Hulkenberg in 7th. Let me just wait to see what Daniel Kvyat does, who is currently P11. And on another lap, does he pit? Does he go to the line? He goes to the line. And what does he do? He goes P10 and puts Stroll into the drop zone, who does another lap but does not improve. So yeah, it's Hulkenberg P7. Sainz is in P8. Kevin Magnussen is in P9. And then it is Daniel Kvyat in the what is going to be solo Toro Rosso, I think, from now on in qualifying, in P10. P11 is Lance Stroll. That's pretty good for him, considering it's him in qualifying. Gasly has just done a lap of 1:21.7. That's quite slow. Norris is 12th. Norris also starting from the back tomorrow. He probably won't go out again. And then you've got Giovinazzi in 13th. 14th is Gasly, and then 15th is Raikkonen. Raikkonen, of course, did not set a time because he went off at Lesmo 1. So, in the drop zone, Stroll, Norris, Giovinazzi, Gasly, Raikkonen. By the way, guys, don't worry. The Williams pictures will be over in a moment. Gasly needs to step it up. Again, though, he's starting from the back, so whatever he does doesn't matter. And I think Gasly could go a lot faster because he is, what, a second off Kvyat? Yeah, I think Gasly's not really trying that hard. Because again, he's starting at the back. He doesn't need to really do anything today. He didn't need to do Q1, but he did. Because obviously he wants to supply the fans with a bit of entertainment. But I think if Gasly did not have a penalty, I think Pierre could be in the top 10 with Kvyat. But obviously has the penalty. But with just under 6 minutes to go, we have probably the only drivers for me who are at threat of getting knocked out, who are actually going to try and get into the top 10, are Stroll, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, who are, of course, in the drop zone. Norris and Gasly are going to start the back, so they don't really need to try. And then Kvyat, I think, also is at risk of getting knocked out. I think Magnussen is just about okay. Just about okay, I think, Kevin Magnussen. And then the top, I think, 5, I think, are just about okay. Top 6, maybe as well. Maybe even top 7. But we now have 5 minutes left. And yet we do have dark clouds in sight, but they are not close enough to affect qualifying. If qualifying was taking place an hour later, maybe it would rain, but I don't think it will. It's not quite close enough, those dark clouds. But tomorrow we could have rain, so don't forget to tune in to tomorrow's race watch along with me and Nib. at 10 past 1 p.m. UK time for what should be, dry or wet, a very good Italian Grand Prix. As Lewis Hamilton is in his pit box, just waiting around. Probably won't have to go out again. No, he won't. He's 1.3 seconds quicker than Lance Stroll, who is in P11. So he is absolutely fine. But he, like the Ferrari cars and Albon, and maybe the Renaults, will go out again just in case, but also to get their qualifying 3 set up or, handling or feeling, going. But we're now under 4 minutes away from the end of Q2. Who will be the first to come out? We'll see in a moment. As we're currently looking at Jerome Stoll, I think that is. And there is, by the way, Sergio Perez on the screen, who of course is out. Shame for him, because if Stroll is in P11, then imagine where Perez would be. Perez probably would be around Hülkenberg and Sainz at the moment. So it is a real shame for Racing Point, because they've got a good chance of climbing the constructors now that they have an improved car. And by the way, for any Racing Point fans out there, good news, you've got one last big upgrade coming for Singapore, and then after that, they will be fully concentrating on the 2020 Racing Point. So, yeah, looking good for them for the rest of the season, and I think going into 2020, because they're definitely going to start the season off a lot stronger, I think. Certainly in testing. As Sebastian Vettel looks like he's about to come out on circuit, to again do a just in case lap and also get his tyres ready for the first run of qualifying 3. That's Pierre Gasly, who is he going to go out again? I think if Gasly does go out, he'll be out there to provide a tow to his teammate. And yet Gasly does come out. If Toro Rosso are smart, they're going to provide Gasly or provide Kvyat a tow, but everyone has literally come out the pits at once because they're all trying to get a bloody tow. And yet all the cars are out onto the circuit with 2 minutes to go in qualifying 2. The only drivers for me at risk are Kvyat, Stroll, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Gasly and Norris. Even though they're in the drop zone, we know they have grid penalties, so what they do does not really matter. But we'll see what happens near the end of the outlap and see if there's any backing up. Because if there is, might cause some controversies, or maybe someone getting knocked out, as a Ferrari right now is trying to overtake a Toro Rosso through the Curva Grande, and the Toro Rosso's defending his position. What is going on? It's only qualifying. And now, who's that? Vettel, I think it is, now trying to pass, but the Toro Rosso's going to let him through. I think he did. Yes, he did. Whoever that Toro Rosso is was smart enough to let him through. And behind that Toro Rosso are the Alphas, I think, or an Alpha and a Haas. And now, coming to the Parabolica, it's going to be Albon first, then Magnussen. And here comes Alex Albon in the Red Bull. It's weird saying that he's in a Red Bull, but there you go. With his very skinny rear wing, and let's see if Albon can do enough to confirm a top 10 slot. He should do. He's 8/10 clear of the drop zone. As Albon comes into the Rettifilio. Red Bull does look very good. It just doesn't have the power. Plenty of cars in the background as well, collecting a tow down the pit straight. And Albon now coming up to the end of the first sector. What will his time be? He's already half a second off in the first sector and has not improved his first sector time. Even Magnussen was a couple tenths faster in the first sector than the Red Bull. As Albon now comes through the Lesmos. Red Bull car again, looking good as the timer has now stopped. And qualifying 2 is now about to come to its end. As Albon comes to the middle sector and is still not lapping that quickly. And yeah, he won't improve on this lap, I don't think. But Kevin Magnussen is improving. Kevin Magnussen is about 0.2 of a second up on his lap. So Magnussen looking good as Albon comes through the Parabolica and comes to the line, and Albon will not improve his time. And no, he does not. Kevin Magnussen comes to the line and stays P9, does not improve his time. Gasly goes P13. Hulkenberg, P7. Raikkonen goes up to P8. There you go. Lance Stroll now goes P8 ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. Great lap by Lance. Carlos Sainz goes P7. Magnussen is out. Where's Daniel Kvyat? Daniel's coming to the line. What can he do? Only P12. Giovinazzi goes P11 and misses out by 0.02 of a second on knocking out his teammate Kimi Raikkonen as Lewis Hamilton goes P1. So out is Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Kvyat, Norris and Gasly, but Lance Stroll is in P9. Great drive by Lance. That's his best qualifying performance since this time last year, where of course he put his Williams car in the top 10. So out in Q2, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Kvyat 13th. He'll be disappointed by that. Norris 14th, Gasly 15th. Of course, those two, Norris and Gasly, have grid penalties, but that is it for Q2. Let me just update the rest of the order and then I'll get to updating the timer and the text. The Hamilton went P1 at the end there from Leclerc, Vettel, and then Ricciardo, Bottas, Albon. And then it was Sainz who got up to P7. Good run there by Carlos, by the smooth operator, of course. And then Hulkenberg 8th, Stroll 9th, and Raikkonen in 10th. So, qualifying 2 is now complete. And let me just update that image. Let me just bring it down a bit. There you go. Now it's time, in a moment, for qualifying 3. Just say that Q2 is over, of course, for anyone joining right now. Who will get pole position? It's going to be close between Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc and Vettel, and maybe someone else. Who knows? It's very close at the top. By the way, hello to the 572 people watching live. Great to see you all, and hopefully if you are new, then you'll subscribe to the channel for more content like this as we do watch-alongs of practice 2, qualifying in the race for every F1 race weekend. In a replay of Gasly passing Raikkonen on the outlap, I think. Or Raikkonen was trying to pass Gasly, and Gasly came across and almost hit him off the circuit. Yeah, bit weird there, but there you go. Let me just look at the chat. Yeah, Perez had a failure. Ricciardo pole. I think Ricciardo could put it on the second row. If you look at the time so far, Ricciardo's a second row candidate. And here is a replay of, and that's why Sainz got through. Great teamwork. Norris providing the tow to Carlos Sainz down the pit straight. So that's why Carlos Sainz is going to be competing in qualifying 3. Because Lando was a great teammate. And of course he doesn't have to do it, but he knows that, you know, for McLaren securing 4th in the Constructors, they have got to do that. They've got to work as a team. And in the midfield, you have to work as a team because those points, of course, are valuable. As we now wait for the start of qualifying 3 as Kevin Magnussen is walking back into the pits. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. What are your guys' thoughts so far of qualifying? And who do you think will get pole? Are you sticking to your original prediction or not? Niblo asking, Ferrari party mode incoming. Maybe this is where they finally showcase the amount of power they have. But we'll see. I'm not too sure that they have much of a party mode at the moment to really use. You just realign that. There you go. Let me look at some other comments. Robert saying, stay calm, Ferrari will get the pole. I still think Ferrari are the favourites, but it is very close. If an error is made, then Hamilton and Bottas, to a degree, are there. And also Ricciardo is there to capitalise on any errors by either team or driver. So it's going to be a very, very, very close session. As Sky F1 just showing one, I think, Kvyat getting held up by Albon, who is on his way back to the pits. But let me now get the text ready for Q3, because it's about to get underway in a minute. So, of course, remaining in Q3. And again, if you don't know, qualifying 3 is a 12-minute session. If Lewis is on pole, the race will be boring. I'm not sure if it'll be boring, but it won't be as good if he's on pole. Not because, you know, I don't like him or anything. I don't care really he's on pole, as long as it's a great session and a great weekend. But because Lewis will have the faster car in the race, we want to see Lewis, you know, behind the Ferrari cars, so he has to overtake them, so, you know, to create some excitement. So it would be more exciting if we did have say a Ferrari and Mercedes front row, say Leclerc and Hamilton. That'd be pretty exciting. So we'll see if we get that, as we are about to get underway for qualifying 3 in a few seconds' time, I believe. As we're seeing further replays of Norris supplying the tow to Carlos Sainz. As on Sky F1, Simon Lazenby is talking to Paul di Resta and Nico Rosberg. By the way, Nico Rosberg has officially responded to Max Verstappen's comments on Sky F1 live about, what, 2.5 hours ago. Sadly, I was not actually listening at the time because I was having to, you know, set the stream up. So I don't know what he said, but if anyone knows, let me know later on and I'll react to it. As qualifying 3 gets underway in just a moment, and there you go. So my timer is about a second behind, so it is, you know, basically synced up. Let me look at the chat quickly. Astro Stevo, yep, Leclerc Hamilton front row would be awesome. The current best versus the best of the rising stars. I wouldn't say Leclerc's the best of the rising stars. I think that'd have to go to Max Verstappen if you're looking at the, you know, the younger drivers. But it would be great to see Leclerc versus Hamilton, because we've seen Verstappen versus Hamilton this year, but we've not seen Leclerc versus Hamilton properly. So hopefully we get that. As we've got there Kimi Räikkönen sat in his car. And all the Ferrari. And there's a couple Mercedes fans in there giving their support. Some rogue fans trying to will on Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas to a pole position. So who is going to come out first? I'd imagine it'd be one of the midfield teams, maybe a Stroll or a Räikkönen, as they're ready for Bottas to come out. And Valtteri cannot afford to have a similar session to what he just had in Q2, because he cannot be out-qualified by a Renault. That is an absolute no-no. He has to be in there, Valtteri, for a podium. Because Mercedes, with the race pace they have, can get a podium tomorrow. And he's got to be in there for qualifying. As both Mercedes cars come out, so do the 2 Ferrari cars. And I believe the 2 Renaults are coming out as well. As Matteo Binotto looking at the cars. And, yeah, just like Baku, Hamilton and Bottas are doing a fake practice start, or a practice start, but they're letting F1 go ahead of them so they can pick up a tow just like they did in Baku. And in Baku, that led to a front row lockout. Very smart by them. And I wouldn't be surprised if that paid off for them again. As one of the Mercedes cars is in between Sainz and a Renault. Who else have we not got on track? We've got everyone on circuit at the moment except for Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, for some reason, is still in the pits. Not quite sure why. Maybe he wants to do only one run. There's all Alpha there. Kimi Raikkonen trying to pass Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. Oh, it's getting a bit scruffy. Raikkonen is trying to get past, and Carlos is just weaving around. Bit dangerous that, but there you go. Here is Vettel at turn 1. He locks up both front tyres and goes down the escape road. I know it's only the outlap, but that will affect the tyres. That's not what you want to start the session or to start Q3. You've got to start off with some kind of consistency. As Vettel now is coming into the Parabolica, and Ricciardo is the second car on track, so he'll get the slipstream from Vettel, and Raikkonen is now going to try and get the slipstream from Leclerc. Hamilton will get Raikkonen's slipstream, and then Valtteri will get Carlos Sainz's, and Albon will get everyone's. As now, the first run start in qualifying 3. Who will get pole position at Monza? Let's see at the temple of speed. Sebastian Vettel comes through the first Rettifilo chicane. Now through the Curva Grande. And up to the second chicane, the Della Roggia. And does a 26.7 for the first sector, which is not too bad. But it's not the fastest first sector. Interestingly, I think a Renault just did that. As Vettel now comes through the 2 Lesmos. Ferrari looking good in the fast corners, as Ricciardo is staying close enough to get a toe behind. And Vettel now comes down to the middle sector point, does a 53 flat for the middle sector. Ricciardo 53.2 for the middle sector. Ricciardo still doing well in the Renault, as now Sebastian Vettel heads down to Parabolica, and he's got to absolutely throw it in, and he does. And can he? Oh, I think he went slightly off, I'm not sure. But he comes to the line, Sebastian Vettel, and does a 1:19.4. That's quick. Daniel Ricciardo goes second on a 19.8. Hulkenberg goes third. Leclerc now goes P1. Lewis Hamilton goes P2, only half a tenth off. And Kimi Raikkonen is in the barriers. And red flags. He's gone off at the Parabolica. That is the second time he's gone off at the Parabolica. And Raikkonen is out of qualifying. So he will be, if Stroll comes out, which he should, Kimi Raikkonen will qualify in P10. That red flag denied Valtteri Bottas setting a quick lap at the end. Or not at the end, but, you know, for his first run, at the end of his lap. And that also, same for Alex Albon as well. So at the moment, it's Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Bottas, Albon, Raikkonen, Stroll. What a top 10 that would be if it finished that way. But Leclerc is only half a tenth faster than Hamilton. It's very close at the front. So it's Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel, Ricciardo. And here's a replay. So Raikkonen comes down into Parabolica, turns in, and simply, I don't think it was because he touched the curb. He did slightly clip it, but I think the Alpha basically, the rear was not as connected to the front as it should have been. And here's a replay of Vettel. Did he go off at the Parabolica? Oh, that's so close. I think he did. I think Sebastian went all 4 wheels off. And here's a replay of Valtteri Bottas. For some reason, I think they're showing what happened to him. But yeah, it's Hulkenberg 5th. And then it is Carlos Sainz in 6th. And then Valtteri Bottas is 7th. As Raikkonen now gets in the medical car. Of course, Kimi Raikkonen is absolutely fine. The crash was not that harmful. Because, funnily enough, the gravel slowed him down. Same gravel that should be used in more racetracks to slow the cars down. Albon is P8. Kimi Raikkonen is P9. And then in P10 is Lance Stroll. There you go. And there is, funnily enough, the Kimster on the screen, I believe. It is. So the timer has stopped at 6 minutes and 35 seconds, I believe. Yep, that is correct. So we have plenty of time left for the rest of qualifying. I've reset the timer. Just looking at the chat to see what you guys are saying quickly. Mr. Labman, I hope Kimi doesn't have to start at the back before Max because they crashed together again. Let's hold off on that. Raikkonen's rear wing, though, is completely destroyed. I think that might be a new gearbox. Because the gearbox, of course, is attached to the rear wing, the crash, structure at the rear. And... oh, so... Raikkonen crashed right before Hamilton came past. So Hamilton, of course, was right behind him. I don't think Hamilton will get penalised, but that might have caused Hamilton to second guess the corner, which could have resulted in why he's only half a tenth off Charles Leclerc. So don't quite think that was a smooth run for Lewis. Wasn't as smooth mentally for him as it could have been, because of course a car flew off to the left in front of him. Another man on screen you can see now, Carlos Sainz is P6. And on my TV we are seeing Valtteri Bottas. So yeah, Bottas, Albon, Raikkonen of course, and Stroll has not set a time yet. So we'll see what they can do when the red flag comes back in. Henry Mole says he thinks Leclerc will get pole from Hamilton and Bottas. Dan Okero, all things being equal, Hamilton is P1. You can't quite look at it like that all the time because it can be a bit confusing, but I think Hamilton is definitely, if he was in a Ferrari, I think Lewis would definitely get pole. No doubt about that whatsoever. So, but he can still get pole. He's in a very good car, and Valtteri has gone up to P3 for some reason. So he did set a time. So Valtteri set a time and was only 8 thousandths off his teammate, and is also half a tenth off pole position. So they have counted his lap time. So that's Bottas P3 and then Vettel P4. Vettel, I'm sorry, he's got to improve on P4. He has to be. If the Mercedes cars are going to be that close, I think Sebastian needs to be at least in the top 3. For me. If he's 4th, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. So Ricciardo is 5th. Nico Hülkenberg is 6th, and then it is Carlos Sainz in 7th, and then Albon, Raikkonen and Stroll. As we still have a red flag. Sizzle says, remember Vettel didn't get toe? True. That is true. But I still would have expected slightly better on that lap. Considering, again, the amount of, power the Ferrari does have, as we still have a red flag. So, by the way, guys, if you are just joining us and you're wondering what on earth is going on, we have a red flag with 6.5 minutes to go in qualifying 3. Kimi Raikkonen has crashed out at the Parabolica, and at the moment, it is Leclerc on pole by half a tenth from Hamilton and Bottas, who are both half a tenth off Leclerc. Vettel is P4, and then it's the 2 Renaults 5th and 6th. Sainz is 7th, and then Albon, Raikkonen and Stroll. in 8th, 9th and 10th. And then the rest of the order you can read on the screen there. As to who has been knocked out in qualifying 2 and qualifying 1. And here is Sebastian Vettel, and they're just showing a replay of, did he go off at the parabolic exit? It's so close. If he did, it must have been by about a cigarette paper. I think he did, but it was very close. Very, very close. And they're just showing there on the screen, Lewis Hamilton has the most pole positions at this circuit and is looking to go for number 7. The second and third joint most poles. Fangio and Senna. Great company to be amongst. As I think they're just now cleaning up the debris and putting it into a truck so they get rid of all that stuff, and then we can get qualifying 3 back underway. Still I Rise says, if Lewis was in a Ferrari, he'd get pole by a second. I don't think it'd be that quick. I don't think it'd be in pole position by that much. Maybe 2 or 3 tenths, but not a second. That's a bit much. But he's definitely driving very well this weekend. He's keen to take the fight to Ferrari and win on enemy turf, of course. Something, of course, that he did so brilliantly in 2018. And that win he had in 2018 was one of the best victories in his career, because it did not look likely for Lewis to win last year's Italian Grand Prix, but he did, because he outdrove the car and was back then at that race such a great driver. But quickly, I'm going to have a drink, guys, and then we'll get to, talking about the rest of the session. Yep, 6.5 minutes left, and then we still have a red flag. But the FIA have just said the session will restart in a minute's time. So get ready, guys. It's about to get underway again. And it looks to me to be a 4-way fight for pole. I don't think the Renaults have a chance. They're too far off. They're about half a second off. So it is between Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas and Vettel. Who will get it? Who will take the all-important pole at Monza? If I was to say right now, I'd probably say Lewis Hamilton, but it's going to be close. It's really going to be close. As we are now, and now the timer is about to get underway again. 6 minutes and 35 seconds to go, just to clarify. By the way, I just saw Astro Steve say 1 minute to go. I don't quite know what you're paying attention to, but there is not 1 minute to go. I can guarantee you that. I'll just readjust this picture of Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault, and he is looking good for a 3rd row start, unless Albon can spoil that party. And we're just waiting for that timer to get going again. As we're watching Sebastian Vettel in the pits. And now James Vowles on the pit wall. Will he do the same again? Do a practice start at the end of the pit lane to try and get a tow from the other cars? We'll see. Hopefully as well, Lance Stroll comes out of the pits and actually does a run. I think he will, because he doesn't have a grid penalty to my memory. And the timer has got going again. Once we get down to the 6 minute mark, I will redo or resync up the timer, which is in about 15 seconds. But the cars are not going to come out right away, because they're only going to do one final run. And that won't come for another 3 minutes or so in terms of getting back out on track to do it. And there you go. 6 minutes left. I think it's unfair to not count Seb's lap if it's just a few millimeters. I understand your point, but off the track is off the track. It doesn't matter if you're miles off or just off. If you're off the track, all 4 wheels over, and you're gaining time, which of course they are, because that's why they're going that wide, then you've got to have your time deleted, I'm afraid. That's the way the rule book should work most of the time. And that's how it's being implemented this weekend. If you go all 4 wheels off, you will get your time deleted. I'm not sure if he did have all 4 wheels off. I think it was close, probably on the line. But if he goes even further across, he will not be allowed another lap time, that's for sure. Go Ferrari, says someone there. Go Lewis, hammer time. Serugara, talking about Fernando Alonso there. Abner saying Avanti Ferrari. Let me look at a couple other comments here. Taslim saying Mercedes is keeping their pace under their sleeves. They will show Leclerc Ferrari got pole and Hamilton won by far margin. The Tifosi should panic now. Mercedes is too close. Definitely, they are too close for comfort. If you're Ferrari, they're not in a position of comfort here. They are not in a position of comfort at all because let me just readjust that picture. They're not comfortable here because if Hamilton gets the lap right, or Bottas, because Bottas, let's not forget him, he's out-qualified Lewis Hamilton 5 times in 2019. If they get the right, lap, if they get it all right, all the corners, and they get the right slipstream, then I think they're right there for pole. But, again, it's going to be so close. I know I'm repeating myself, but it is going to be hundreds, if not thousandths of a second, separating Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas, and Vettel. And I will say, though, and someone was just saying in the chat about the race, if Lewis gets pole, I think the race is mostly over because Lewis will have a faster car. And Lewis, I think, is probably the best race driver at the moment. Or not the best race driver, but, the best driver on the grid. As Ferrari are now getting ready to send out current provisional pole position man, Charles Leclerc. And Albon also ready to go. And Bonotto on the pit wall looking tense. And also Laurent Marquis as well, the sporting director of Ferrari, looking very tense as well. Because if Ferrari don't get pole here, I don't see a pole position coming until 2020, if I'm honest. And you have to doubt the new Spec 3 power unit if Ferrari don't get pole. And Hamilton there, ready, and on the back of Charles Leclerc's steering wheel still. Rip Tonio, rest in peace, Antonio Hubert. Or not Antonio, Antoine Hubert, but obviously Tonio was his nickname. As we're now 2 minutes to go. And now they go out. They're leaving it very late to go out. There's only 2 minutes left and it's a 1 minute and 20 lap. And now they all come out onto the track. Is there a racing point in there? Yes, there is. Lance is out on track. So here we go. Who will get pole? We'll find out in the next 2 minutes. Oh, Hulkenberg locked up at turn 1 on the outlap and he's gone straight on at the first chicane. He'll go through the bollards, but I think qualifying's over. They're all going so... Yeah, qualifying's over, isn't it? They're all going so slowly. What the hell is going on? They're all backing each other up. What are you doing? Oh, well, Charles Leclerc's on pole then. They're all just backing each other up. Absolute stupidity. Whoever organised that should get a penalty because now we have no qualifying 3 to happen. Because no one's going to make it round in time. They've only got 50 seconds to get to Parabolica or get to the start-finish line. And they're not going to get there. And now Carlos Sainz goes down the inside of Vettel. Oh, what is going on? This is so stupid. Absolute stupidity. This looks like the first lap of a bloody Grand Prix. It's qualifying. What are you doing out there, lads? They've got 30 seconds to go. They're not going to make it. Are they going to make it? They'll be lucky if they do. I can tell you that. As now now Leclerc's trying to pass Vettel. Sorry guys if I sound animated, but this is so ridiculous. If no one makes it round in time, then, I don't know, blame the McLarens. This is the most ridiculous end to a qualifying session I've ever seen in my entire life. We've got 5 cars side by side going down the bloody pit straight. And yeah, Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, Albon, Stroll, all of their laps have finished because they haven't made it in time. You absolute clowns. Idiots. Absolute idiots. What is the point in that? The only people that have made it round is bloody Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. Leclerc might as well just not bother because he's got pole. That is the worst end to qualifying I've ever seen. And if I was Michael Massey, the race director, I am giving penalties out for that. That was absolutely ridiculous. Absolute disgrace. Absolute disgrace. So, to explain to anyone who didn't see, so if you watched F3 qualifying, basically the same thing happened in this qualifying. They all came out of the pits with 2 minutes to go. By the way, why are you coming out with 2 minutes to go? It's a 1 minute 20 lap. You know you're going to be so on the out lap, so why are you coming out with 2 minutes left? Are you trying to not make it? What's the bloody point? So then you've got what? Sainz is now coming across the line, has ended up in P7 anyway, so what was the point of that? And I think Carlos Sainz will get a grid penalty because I think he was the main instigator of doing that, and also Stroll in the Racing Point, who has ended up P9 without setting a bloody time. And Albon is P8 without setting a time. So, whoever was at the front, I think it was Sainz, Stroll and the 2 Renaults, were basically just parking through Curva Grande, parking their car there, basically, holding everyone up. Like, what are you doing? Why are you holding people up? If you know you're not going to get round in time, let the people through that are faster than you. And now we're seeing a replay of Hamilton having to overtake people on a qualifying lap. And here you go. Yeah, he gets backed up massively by a Renault through the final corner. Absolute disgrace. I want penalties for this. I'm serious. And Hamilton had to pass the Renault across the start-finish line, or tried to, by going off the track. Like, look at that on the TV. It looks more like a race. What is going on? What is going on? Sorry, guys, but that was absolutely stupid. And as well, I'm going to blame... these are the people that deserve blame. The drivers who held up the other ones who were trying to get on with it. But also, all the teams are... For that, all the teams involved in qualifying 3 are to blame. Because they all sent their drivers out with 2 minutes to go, knowing that they'd have to do a quick outlap to get round. Send them out earlier. Send them out with 3 minutes to go. Not bloody... What was it? 2 minutes, an hour and 45, a minute and 45. Oh, pure stupidity. Very, very stupid by lots of drivers there. And that was the worst end to qualifying I think we've ever seen. And that's the worst qualifying session I've seen. Let me look at some... let me look at some comments here to see what you guys are saying. And near people saying, what a joke. What a joke. They were I can't even believe this. They were literally overtaking one another round Parabolica like it was the last corner of the last lap. It's final lap of Q3. So stupid. We were in for such a great finish to the run. To the qualifying session. And then, they go and do that. I think we need at least 3 or 4 grid penalties for that. I'm going to be honest. I think the drivers at the front of that pack, I think they deserve a grid penalty. I think definitely Carlos Sainz in the McLaren, he deserves a grid penalty because he was at the front most of the time. And he even overtook a Ferrari. just to, just to, I don't know, prove a point, overtaking Ferrari, I don't know. But that, I'm sorry guys, was the worst qualifying session I've ever seen. That was worse than the two first qualifying sessions in 2016. At least in 2016, we actually saw a proper run, kind of at the end of the sessions, but you know what I mean. But that was horrifically bad. So I'm sorry, guys, that F1 has put on such a terrible show, but it's not my doing. It is the drivers and the teams who have caused such a farce to occur there. What did Leclerc do? Leclerc got to the front of the pack. And then got passed by Carlos Sainz at Les Mo 2, and then just followed Sainz through and just about made it over the line to, to get round. But Leclerc, because everyone else who was competing with him for pole didn't get across in time, he didn't have to do a final run. Carlos Sainz did, but he didn't improve his position. He was still in P7. But, yeah, that was absolutely horrific. Juve N says, go out when you want. If everyone goes at once, so be it. It's not only, plenty of teams will have the same idea of when is the best time to go out onto the track. But you can't leave yourself that little a time to do an outlap. You've got to have, at least, in my opinion, 90 seconds. If it's a 90-second-ish or 80-second-ish lap, you've got to have at least 90 seconds to do an outlap. Not, 40 seconds, to get round. Or not 40 seconds, but, 40 seconds until it goes down to 1 minute 20 to go, which is how long it takes to get around this circuit at full speed. So, very, very stupid. Will Leclerc be penalised? I don't think so. Because I don't think... That's the thing. Leclerc was trying to get through the pack and get on with a lap. If anything, he should be praised for actually trying to get on with it. Let me just see what's going on here. Michael Ewing, do you think Renault will get a penalty? If they were causing that to happen, they should. I don't care that they've performed great. Anyone at that end of the qualifying session, anyone who was causing the other drivers to be blocked should get a a penalty, like they did in F3. I know in F3 they did give 15 drivers grid penalties, but I'm sorry, that was ridiculous. They've got to start investigating drivers for that. Let me just put that up on the screen. And let's see what you guys are saying. This is a frigging scam. Right. We're now seeing a replay on Sky F1. So Hülkenberg goes off at the first chicane. Then you got Stroll and Sainz. Stroll and Sainz go side by side and just park it. Leclerc comes up, tries to get past. Hülkenberg doesn't move. So I'm going to say Hülkenberg and Sainz deserve a penalty. Maybe Stroll as well. For the first bit. That's only up to the first two corners. And then... Oh dear, bloody Albon passing Stroll at the final corner. That's not great. Well, Sainz and Hülkenberg deserve a penalty. There you go. Those are two. Those are two people that deserve a penalty. Those were two absolute clear, people who were causing that to happen. And then at the end, I don't know who you can give a penalty for the stuff at the end, because I don't think any of them knew what to do. They just dove around and did stuff. But all out of the last session, 10th place penalty. It would be great if they all got a 10th place grid penalty, but of course that won't happen. But I think Hülkenberg and Sainz have got to get a grid penalty for that, because that was just a disgrace. Hulkenberg went off and parked it basically in front of everyone else. If you go off the track, you can't then rejoin ahead of everyone and be expected to stay ahead. I'm sorry, that's not right. I will say though, the teams deserve for me more blame than the drivers. The drivers did, some of them who were blocking others did not drive well. Quite disgraceful, honestly, in the way some of them drove. But the teams have to be blamed, because if they did not send their cars out with 2 minutes to go when it's a 90 or 80-second lap, then it wouldn't have happened. They would have been able to slow each other down as much as they wanted to if they all sent them out with 3 minutes to go. What is the thinking with sending them out with 2 minutes to go? Especially if you want them to do a slow out lap and slow down and get the toe and make sure you can get some slipstream off some cars ahead. What's the thinking if you're putting them out on track that late? I don't understand the thinking. I don't think there was any thinking with those decisions, but yeah, terrible session. Absolutely terrible. And again, sorry guys, but blame Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, who else you got in there? Racing Point, Renault, and McLaren. Blame those teams first for this happening, and then blame Stroll, Sainz, and Hulkenberg as drivers at least. Oh, it's Vettel. So Vettel was trying to get on with it, but no, Hulkenberg and Sainz just parking there for no reason. And that's why Sebastian, I don't think got round in time. And then Sebastian got overtook at the second Lesmo. Oh, it's so terrible. So terrible. At least if you're a Ferrari fan, you've got pole position, but it's in the most unsatisfactory, disgraceful way. Not in terms of Ferrari cheating or anything like that, because the two Ferrari drivers were actually trying to get on with it, but Ferrari, the team, have to be blamed for sending their cars out with only 2 minutes to go. But it's not a qualifying session today that I can say that I enjoyed after that. That ruined it for me, completely ruined it. And we saw it in Spa with Hamilton, Bottas, Hulkenberg. We saw it in Spa. They all just sat there waiting forever, and slowing down to the point of parking on the circuit. The FIA have got to say, look, I know you want a slipstream, I know you want a tow, I know you want to save your tyres, but you cannot drive incredibly slowly. And what I would do is set a lap time that the drivers have to do on an outlap, and if they go slower than that outlap, then they get a penalty. That's what they should do. Because those drivers were not even, some of them didn't even look like they were trying to make it round. I don't know if they had a timing error and they thought there was longer left, but terrible. Anyway, let me read out some final comments. Niblo saying, great to see you, mate, by the way, who for you coming along. He says, I'm off, see you lads tomorrow. Absolutely, he'll be on the live stream tomorrow. Yep, they did that already. You have to be quicker than the safety car pace. With the safety car so slow, you can't do it to that pace. What I would do for an outlap pace is, say, add half a minute to a usual lap time. So you've got to do at least, or at the slowest, you've got to do like a 1 minute 50 or a 1 minute 45, not a 2 minute lap, because that's just ridiculous. But right, I'll read out final couple comments and then I'll come to the end of the stream, guys. And I've got to get that qualifying review up. So yeah, that'll be coming up soon. E7 Suspect says, to be fair, I'm annoyed, but a tow is worth so much time, but I better see penalties. It is, and it is a good tactic, but you can't leave yourself, such small time to get a lap in before the checkered flag comes down. You've got to get on with it. but none of them were. None of them were. So, yeah, it's just not right at all. Not right at all. I understand what they're trying to do, but that was a farce. And, at the end of the day, we're trying to entertain new, crowds to Formula One. That's not entertaining. That's just farcical. And yeah, Astro Steve, the qualifying review will be out in, what's the time now? 3:30 UK time. So the qualifying review will be out at probably 4:15, so about 45 minutes. But guys, that is it for qualifying. A very highly contentious and I have to say disgraceful qualifying today. But still, qualifying has happened and it is Charles Leclerc on pole, of course. Don't forget, guys, to join me in 45 minutes time for my recorded review of qualifying, where I will, give my thoughts again on what's happened with the whole farce at the end and all the teams and how they did. And don't forget as well, tomorrow, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for the race watch along tomorrow at 1:10 UK time. That's when we'll start going live. That's an hour before the race starts, and then we'll be live for the race, and then we'll be live for another half an hour after that. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my homepage, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Also, hit the like button for more content like this, and also to help out the channel. It really does help. As well, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below what did you think of the farce at the end of the session, and what did you think of qualifying, and who did well and who didn't do well. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description. That's the best place for notifications and notifications for my videos and streams, and is the hardcore Chazza HDF1 community. We have at least 300 people in that server, so don't forget to join that. And also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. Like my Facebook if you can. That's ChazzaHDF1 on Facebook. And check out my website, ChazzaHDF1. No, sorry, not ChazzaHDF1. ChazzaHD.com for more content like this. But guys, until my qualifying review soon in 45 minutes, and until my race watch along for the race for the 2019 Italian Grand Prix, it has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.